So understand that getting better in your life takes absolute laser-like focus because you're breaking out of an addiction to mediocrity. You're breaking out of gravity, an incredible gravity. You're breaking out of an identity. You're breaking out of a peer group that knows you in a certain way. You're breaking out of different habits. It's something that has such incredible gravity to it. And I think the hardest part, of course, is that we set up our lives in a way where we don't even really have the time to make that much change. I mean, how much actual time do you even have to make a change if you're working even a 40-hour-a-week work week, which in this day and age, 40 hours doesn't even sound like that much. That's still 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's a 40-hour work week. Did I get that math correct? I think I did. Right? 80, like they view that as nothing, and yet 40 hours a week is still quite a bit of work if you actually think about it, right? People say, no, it's got to be 100. But in reality, 40 hours of hard work is a lot of work. Now, let's look at a basic 40-hour work week. Okay, so, you get up. Let's say that you get up at 7 a.m., takes you till 8:30 or 9 or whatever to get to work. Then you work 8 hours. You get home around 6 o'clock by the time that you're done your commute. And now, how much time do you actually have to even do anything to change?
How much?
Think about this. How much time do you actually have?
3-4 hours.
3-4 hours, right? To do what? Like, what are you really going to get done in 3 or 4 hours? Do you guys realize the average person would probably be better off to move in with their parents? I've honestly wondered that. Should I start just telling y'all to move back in with your parents? Like, should that be my message? Like, you messed up. You should never have moved out of your parents' house. You shouldn't have moved out of your parents' house till you had a business. Move back in your parents' house till you build a business. Like, half of me thinks to say that. Or move in, on the cheap or things like that. A big one is being able to invest in your own skill sets. Like, this is absolutely massive. People talk about, what am I going to invest in the stock market when I'm younger? What's the stock going to get you? Say that you get a 30% return. How much money do you even have? How much money do you even have? Even if you got a 30% return on that stock, how much money do you have to invest? So when you're younger, what you wind up doing is you start investing in your skill sets. And this is a very, very scary thing, to invest into your own skill sets and to double down on yourself, because usually your money is limited. And so you're sitting there, and let's say that you're working 40 hours a week. Let's say that you're making a mediocre paycheck. And let's say to learn from a great teacher, it's going to cost money. Well, the first way that you should do this is with free resources. That's the first way. So you should be looking at online videos and books in every spare moment that you have. So that's sort of the first level, is looking at how much tiny amount of free time it is that you can carve out, and then use every last minute of that time to self-educate. That's the first thing. So in other words, let's say that you're working as a parking attendant. You should be very, very resentful to work as a parking attendant. That should make you really angry. In fact, whatever it is in your life that you're doing now should make you really, really angry, unless it's what you want to be doing. So allow the anger to break you out of apathy. Operating from a space of anger is not the highest paradigm. In fact, it's a pretty low paradigm. But if you're in a state of apathy now, you have to allow yourself to become angry, because the anger is what's going to break you out of the apathy. Why am I so against weed? You just got your answer. Because weed allows you to stay in an apathetic state. It allows you to be comfortable in a situation that you should be uncomfortable. So at a coping level, yes, maybe you need to self-medicate. At a coping level, maybe what you're missing is self-love. Shame is a real problem, by the way. Shame is an actual problem. There's a lot of people that have such toxic shame that toxic shame is actually stopping them from moving forward. For example, some people talk about fat shaming, and they say that, if you fat shame somebody, it will actually stop them from losing weight, because it just builds their shame, and then they feel so ashamed that they're going to keep eating donuts or, whatever it would be, right? But that said, at a certain point, actually being a little bit angry at your situation is actually very motivating, because what it does is it focuses the mind like a laser. So allow yourself to get angry by focusing your mind like a laser. And in a minute, I'm going to have you go through what it is that would make you angry. Now, by the way, what I'm showing you here parallels the way that a sales process works. So, say that you're somebody who did commission-based sales phone calls. What are the first things that you would do on a commission? Say that you did that as a job, which, by the way, is a great job for somebody in their 20s to do, because actually it teaches you incredible skills that you can use the rest of your entire life. It's actually one of the best jobs that you could have. But point being, let's say that you get onto a phone with somebody. What are the first things that you begin to do is you start to elicit pain points. Why do you elicit pain points? Because you've got to help get them leverage to take action. Look, the truth is that if they're genuinely in pain, then you can elicit the pain point. If they're not in pain, it doesn't matter what you say or do. You can't really elicit the pain point, right? So, if there's not, if I said to you, like, are you mad that you are American, right? And I'm like, isn't it hard that you're American? Isn't it hard that you're American? You'd be like, no. right? So you can't elicit a pain point out of somebody that isn't there. I mean, maybe you could reframe them extensively somehow. But generally speaking, you can only elicit a pain point if it's real. So if you're selling somebody and you're eliciting a pain point, that's actually meant to help them to take action on something that they've been apathetic about. Well, the ability to sell somebody on a product, maybe a self-improvement product, that ability that I would have maybe to sell you on something, I use that on myself. You know, like I think they used to say that about like Bosley hair transplant or something, right? It was like, not only do I sell it, I'm a customer. You know, right? It's like that. So, you know, not only do I sell, I'm a customer. So it's one of these things where, you know, I use those same skills on myself. I make myself get angry at situations where I can feel pockets of apathy coming up. I'll see these little pockets of apathy in me of areas that I'm not fixing something, and it'll come up. It's funny because whenever I have a girlfriend, sometimes they'll see me, you know, sitting on the couch just looking absolutely furious. And they're like, Owen, don't get mad. Let's just go hook up or, you know, whatever, right? I'm like, stop it. Just let me sit here. Just leave me alone. Let me sit here, right? And they're like, why are you getting mad? I'm like, look, I've been doing this for 40 years before you met me, okay? I have a method to my madness here. Part of the method to my madness is that if I make a mistake, I love myself. I don't get mad at myself. If I make the mistake again, I love myself. I don't get mad at myself. If I make a mistake a third time, I love myself, and maybe I look at a little bit what I could have done different. I make it a fourth time. I love myself. I look a little bit more what I could have done different. But when I start getting into a fifth and sixth and seventh and eighth and ninth and 10th time, sometimes, y'all, self-love ain't going to cut it. That's just real. Okay, sometimes, not in a form of self-attack, but in a form where you sit there on your couch, and maybe what you do is you say to yourself, maybe I'm not all that. Maybe I'm not on some grand destiny where I'm going to manifest success from my high vibe state. Okay? Maybe what I need now is a low vibe state. And that does not mean to live there or to operate from that space. There is very real negative consequences to operating in perpetuity from a low vibe state, including that you get addicted to it, and then your mind starts messing with you and then causes you to take action that will generate negative events just because you're so addicted to it. So you don't want to do that a lot. Okay, you don't want to live there. But at a certain point, you know, if you're an obese person and you're pounding down donuts, self-love's not going to cut it, y'all. Okay, you got to say, okay, this is not, I'm going to, like, this is going to, like, here'd be an example. This is going to kill me. This is going to make it where I'm not going to be around for my children. I'm not going to get to live my dreams. This is going to mess up my self-esteem. This is going to limit my life experience. My life is passing by day to day, and I'm not getting to experience it. I don't feel good when I'm in a bathing suit and people judge me. I don't want to have to buy clothing with like layers and so on and so forth. This is not good. You know, I'm not thinking clearly because when I'm out of shape, I'm not able to think clearly, and so on and so forth. At a certain point, you've got to start leveraging yourself, and you've got to start writing down and analyzing the reasons why you hate the situation. That's why weed is the devil, because it allows you to be in a negative situation, you know, drinking or playing video games or gossiping. It allows you to medicate the pain that's meant to be there. That pain has a purpose. It's just that if you stay in that pain too long, then that pain becomes an addiction, or that pain can become toxic shame or self-hate. Okay, somebody, and there's a different prescription for everybody at a different level. Like there might be one or two of you in this room. I don't think so, because if you gravitate to my content, I don't attract that kind of audience. But I've seen other teachers who I could see attracted an audience of people that were really, really wounded. I really, really actually enjoy the content of Teal Swan. You guys know Teal Swan? I really enjoy, and it doesn't mean you have to, like, you know, align with every word someone says. I'm sure she wouldn't align with everything I say either, right? That's why it's amazing to have different human beings, because we have a different take based on our life experience. But I remember I went to one of her events. It was amazing. She's amazing. And I recommend her. And I remember, though, being in the room and seeing how different the audience was than mine. There was a lot of people there in tremendous, tremendous pain. And they really went to her looking to help, to get help with pain. And I realized that a lot of my approach, if I had been in front of her crowd, I don't think would be effective for them. Really what a lot of them needed was a hug. They needed some reassurance. They needed to eliminate toxic shame. Like they're in a space of such shame and hating themselves and viewing themselves as worthless that they can't move or maneuver to get ahead. And that's unfortunate. So if that's you, then, you might be stuck in a loop of hating yourself and attacking yourself. And that's sad. I'm really sorry if that's the case. That said, I'd hope that most of you in this room have got past that. I know that we all deal with a little bit of that. Everybody does a little bit. But you also have to get past that. Like, at a certain point, you got to be like, look, like, we're kind of all idiots. You know what I'm saying? Like, when's that moment where you just say, we're kind of all idiots? Like, yes, I'm kind of an idiot. yes, everyone else is kind of an idiot. We got to move forward. Enough's enough, right? Like at a certain point, it's like people are like, when did you find your self-love? It's like, maybe you don't even have to find self-love. I just realizing that we're all a bunch of morons. If you could just get that down, and then you could say, okay, enough of this. I just want to move forward. So from that standpoint, the next thing is you say to yourself, okay, we're all a bunch of morons. And so we can all choose to love ourselves anyway. And so if that's the case, well then if I have pockets of apathy in different areas of my life or in every area, then I've got to get a little bit angry about this. So that's where a lot of my content or content of people like me can rub people the wrong way, right? Like my message can rub a lot of people the wrong way because the thing is like, this is really a niche-based message for a certain type of person at a certain point in their lives, a certain phase in their lives, and a certain transition period in their lives. So, if you take my message where I'm kind of yelling and I'm doing my little song and dance and do my little performative behavior, right? And I'm trying to be animated and maybe say some things that are a bit exaggerated. Well, I'm a great, kind of person to cut up out of context and put in a podcast. Because, you'll see me going crazy, right? Like, never be a beta, going crazy. And then that'll get like millions of views on like a mainstream podcast because it looks like an insane person who literally just runs around all day like, never be beta. And like, I just run around doing that. There's like millions and millions of views on a clip of me screaming, never be beta. I put it out. Okay? I actually released it because I knew it would do that. So, yeah, we actually hunted down clips like that and released them on my TikTok to spread. So the thing is like, knowing they'd go viral, knowing that anything normal can't go viral, of course, nothing like, oh, I stayed up super late running an event till 9 a.m. with my clients, extra work. Like, I'm sure that's going to make it on a podcast, right? Me going, never be a beta. Of course, that's going to go mega viral. So it's one of these things where there is though a point in life where like, maybe you need someone screaming at you, never be a beta. Maybe you need to scream at yourself, never, 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 never be a beta. Like that's a form of therapy for somebody who is just tired of living at the kind of bottom rung of society or in mediocrity. Now, by the way, the truth is that there's nothing wrong with being at the bottom rung of society. There's nothing wrong with being middle class. This is all valid. This is honest work. There's many different experiences of life, many different paths to take in life, and all of them have validity. And it's not as though, only somebody amazing at social skills or dating or wealth building or spiritually enlightened or something crazy like that. It's not as though they're the only people that have a valid life. But what I'd also say is that I think that there's a weird counter-shaming on people that do want more and just basically just want more out of life. Right? Isn't it weird? Like, even look at, say, some of the dating stuff where, like, you can't even talk about dating without saying, like, oh, you want to do, you wanted to attract a better quality partner, or you want to go date around a little bit while you're younger and just get a sense of what's out there, and then you want to attract a higher quality partner? Who hurt you? Right. You want to like date a little bit and then eventually get a higher quality partner to have a better family with someday? What's wrong with your self-esteem? Right? It's like, oh, you want to make a little bit more money? Why are you so unhappy? And the truth is that it's a double-sided coin. There's definitely elements of people that are suffocating for validation, that go out and just need the validation of all these people in dating or social skills or whatever. There's definitely people with crushingly low sense of self-worth that need to get rich in order to think they're going to be happy, and it doesn't make them happy. There's definitely people that are kind of sociopathic that are basically very, very transactional, don't understand the beauty of life, the beauty of giving, the beauty of a walk in the park, the beauty of playing catch with your son, and all they want is more and more money. But what we do then is that we then make a logical fallacy and make a straw man argument by saying that anybody that actually just wants more automatically has low self-esteem. And the thing is that, or is validation hungry, or is a sociopath. And the funny thing is, it's kind of easy to get pulled into that because we all do have a little bit of low self-esteem. We all do sometimes want a little bit of validation. We all do have like that little bit, like that last little pocket of like negative side to us, that's kind of win-lose that we have in us, that we're all on our journey of life of rooting out and in the process of recognizing in ourselves and coming to terms with and releasing so that we can be more win-win. Like, I spent my last 20 years just saying, how can I be more win-win? And every day of my life, I look at my conduct and ethics and behavior and see areas that I felt like I showed up as a second-class person and, like was like a little bit dismissive to the Uber driver. And like, then if somebody says like, well, is the reason that you want to make millions of dollars because you're a psycho? And then like, I think back to me with the Uber driver and how I could have been a little nicer. And I'm like, maybe I am, and I have thoughts like that. I'm sure that you all do too. And it's just one of those, but it's like, it's because you have those thoughts why you're probably inherently someone who's oriented towards being a good person. So understanding this basic idea that you may want more out of life also just comes from wanting to have a broader life experience. Like a simple example would be this, and I've talked a lot about this in videos this year. I went and did about a 3-year trip of the country by car, mostly by car, and I drove most of the country. I can't tell you what an amazing life experience this was. And note the by car component, right? Kind of side point, the beauty of doing it by car is that when you do it by airplane, it feels like you're kind of like in like this little airport thing, and then you go in a tube, and then you kind of just go to this other place. But you never get a full sense of like you never get that full grounding to reality that you get by driving it. Because when you drive the country, which is the best thing I did in my life, I think, or one of, when you drive the country, let's say that you're in Los Angeles, and then you drive out to, say, Montana. You know, you get out of LA, which is kind of this irrigated desert area by the ocean. Then you go to Nevada and you see how it becomes, you know, rocky and very desert-like. Then you get more into Utah, and it's like all of a sudden it gets a little bit greener. Like as you're getting into Utah, the rocks get red. You know the Grand Canyon? You know the Grand Canyon is the gem of an entire area that looks like the Grand Canyon. Do y'all know that? The Grand Canyon is the gem, but the whole area looks like the Grand Canyon. You can drive for hours through things that kind of look like a 5 out of 10 Grand Canyon. But given how awesome the Grand Canyon is, a 5 is a lot more than it sounds like. Because, I mean, the Grand Canyon is crazy. It's completely crazy. So to go through like a 5 out of 10 version, but for miles and miles, you know, in that kind of terrain, just driving through, that's when you go up past Vegas. It's insane. I couldn't believe how beautiful it was. And have you guys ever heard of Zion National Park? Yeah. So Zion is the gem or the jewel of an entire area that looks like Zion. So again, it's like a 5 out of 10 Zion or 3 out of 10 Zion. Doesn't sound that good when you hear 5 out of 10, 3 out of 10. You're like, why do I want that? But when you only see the jewel, it doesn't ground you to reality as much as when you watch the terrain change. You know, like have you ever thought like, oh, like what is it like if you think like, you know, in Colorado right now it's snowing potentially, right? What does the land look like as you drive there? Like how does it gradually change as you get into the mountains? Like what does the change in topography look like, right? It's these subtle changes in topography that you see as you drive that really grounds you to the earth. Like when you've actually seen the country and you've seen how the land changes and you've engaged with the people in the country and you've also been in nature and outside of this weird hamster cage of cities, it really changes your perspective in ways that I can't begin to tell you. It would be so amazing if in the final year of high school, we had a system where everybody in the country could go do that trip. I don't know if that'd be too many people and it would ruin it because it's pretty nice to be able to go to these places, not too many people. Maybe it would ruin it. I don't know, you know, what the capacity of these different parks and areas are. Maybe it'd wreck it. I don't know if it's possible or not. But if there was a way to do it, it'd be amazing. I don't know if there's a way or not. And I'll tell you, that kind of experience. And then I wound up skiing every major ski resort over the winter because I had such a great experience. I said, well, what else is out there in winter? I didn't know how to ski, so I taught myself how to ski. I'd just done a little bit of skiing in high school, and I went and skied all the major ski resorts. Hurt myself, but only fell one time the whole season. Other than when my son pulled me down one time, so twice. But that one time I fell, I blew up my ACL. So shouldn't have done that. But regardless, you know, I'm on the up and up. And so the point being was like just seeing all those mountains. Do you need that to be happy? Absolutely not. You absolutely don't need that to be happy, guys. Absolutely not. But was that a profound, deeply cherished life experience? Absolutely was. Absolutely was. Now, I'll tell you a little secret of that, though. I went with a number of people on that trip. I paid for them. They contributed a lot, you know, filming or chipping in here or there. But I'm just being honest, nobody was able to process that experience like me as the person paying for it. Okay? They can't. Like, you could ask, you know, any of the people that went on it, they won't be able to describe it or let it land the way that I did. So for me, that was a process of, it's always the people who pay for it that get the most out of it, right? It's the people along for the ride, they're not able to get as much out of it. Just the truth. That's also why you shouldn't want a free handout. I gave a lot of free handouts in my life. It didn't matter, right? And the people that I, you know, brought along with me contributed a lot. But it's a different scenario to work for 40 years, 40 plus years, go through hell on earth to get to that point where this is going to be now your big 3-year trip that you spent, you know, you've been through nightmarish hell to get to the point to go do this trip, right? It's different when you kind of stumble into it. You know, maybe you're bringing the bags out, maybe you're contributing, you know, chip it in here or there. You know, it's obviously very helpful. I'm a grateful person. Every little bit of help that I ever got, I'm grateful for. But, you know, for me to go to a 5-star dinner or for me to spend a season skiing, it represents something different because it represents what I went through. Does that make sense? What does jewelry mean for a man? What does a watch mean for a man?
Status.
Could be a woman too. Not status at all. Why do we go buy things like this?
Trophy.
It's a trophy, but what else does it remind you of? It's difficult times of your life that you said to yourself, like, I got to a point financially that I can go buy some stupid thing as a memory. You know what I mean? I can go buy that to commemorate something. So it's one of these things where, part of life is you get out of life what you put into it. And so it's not that you're some psycho who just needs more money to control the earth because you're like a reptilian, or you have to. Some interesting arguments for that, by the way. But and let me go deeper on that topic. But the point being is it's not because of that, but rather I don't like literally believe in that, but I'm just making the point that kind of like negative mentality. But the point being is it doesn't make you some crazed psycho and validation chaser to go do that, right? Like there's something beautiful about working on your social skills, coming from a place where you don't have a lot of social skills and you have social anxiety and you're afraid to go meet people, and then you say, you know what, I'm going to work on like for me it was like every time that I went and initiated with somebody socially, that was like throwing myself into a bed of nails out of fear, right? Not knowing what I would do, not knowing what I would say, not understanding how I was coming across and having to work on that. Well, then obviously if I have an intimate experience, that for me is like the trip, that for me is like the jewelry. Right? It's not so much that you're like, oh yeah. It's not like that. It's actually like a tender moment for yourself of like what you've been through, where it's like it's a moment of introspection. Like I can't tell you, I remember like just, all the beautiful experience that I've had where, maybe I'm sitting in my home with like a beautiful view of the city. And, I remember one of the homes that I lived in had these huge panoramic windows. It's at the top of Runyon Canyon. I used to live in it's called the Runyon House, like a well-known house because it's at the top of Runyon Canyon. They had to like build around and stuff. But anyway, I'm living in the Runyon House. And it was amazing because it's got these big panoramic windows. And I remember sitting there with there was this woman who was a business owner and really, really, really beautiful, like so beautiful. And I remember just really like every time that I went to her store, I was like really, really, really attracted to her, just really, really attracted. And she's the kind of person that dates a lot of like very powerful men and so on and so forth. And it's the kind of thing where like it's not necessarily somebody who's like, she's just going to date just anybody. And it's one of these things where I remember getting to know her and sitting with her just, in my bed and looking out onto the city and hanging out with her and just sharing really, really good energy. And that's a moment not to be a taker, oh yeah, look what I did, and like go high five your boys, like it's not like, yeah, like that. It's not even, I mean, you'll probably act like that because you're a guy and you're putting on a front that you're cool, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how guys act. But it's not about that. It's like, it's that moment where you say, who did I have to become in the course of my life? And, it's not just about like, you're some creeper that applied a trick to attract somebody like that. With a woman like that, a trick's not going to do anything. A trick will do literally nothing. It's who you became as a person in that process of transformation, through the pain that you've been through the work that you put on yourself, to get to enjoy that experience of, sitting there in your home, beautiful view of the city, amazing vibes, looking over the city with a companion who has mutual appreciation for you and you have appreciation for them. And that's an entire process. But people will look at that process, right? Or they'll take locker room talk that I've done to joke with my audience when everybody in my room knows that, and then they'll cut that out of context and make it look like something negative and win-lose, when it's not, right? You making the choice to step up may hurt people's feelings because they're not ready to step up. And so for them, they have to have sour grapes where they say, okay, what you did is like some negative thing, or it's something that is, win-lose, or it's often coming from scarcity to where they view it like there's a limited pie, like there's a limited pie for everybody. And so by you winning, everybody else is going to lose. Like if you go make money, that is somehow less for them. And like, while that may be true in some capacity, if we like looked at all the numbers, that person is not operating anywhere near their potential, and society's not operating anywhere near our collective potential. So like, that's like the whole idea of like there's a limited pie. Like, let's work for the next 400-500 years on getting to our capacity of getting to all the pie, and then we can talk about how that's going to get distributed in a way where, like we finally hit the limit. Like everybody is self-developed. Everybody's at their potential. Everybody's mastered their work ethic. Everybody's waking up. Everybody's done everything. And now that we are all at a 1,000,000 out of 10 level, what do we do next, right? Well, we go to space. Obviously, right? Because by that point, we got space capacity. So we're good. But, instead we can't have those conversations, right? That's the kind of conversations that we should be having. Think of how much energy and minerals there is in space. So we got to be thinking how to get there. We got to be thinking how to go interstellar. But we just get stuck on like Kim Kardashian, right? Who's a valid person. It's a valid person, but like that's a distraction from going interstellar, right? That's a distraction from our collective destiny as human beings. But as fun as it is though to talk about our collective destiny as human beings, we got to talk about the fact you're only making 30, 40 grand a year. So, it's cool to talk about going to the stars. It's more exciting, and it's better to have that bigger vision that propels you forward, as well as a painful, hot poker behind you of why you hate what it is that you're doing. But you want to be thinking more about, I guess, just like having better quality conversations, more inspiring conversations, and just thinking of what's actually possible in life. So for me, what it was, it's not that I needed to go do these other things in life to be happy. It's not at all. But it's that I was able to logically deduce that my life was going to be very, very boring. I could just see that. I could see that, in effect, what I was able to deduce is that most of us will wind up as a, quote, battery in the matrix. And the reason why it happens, fairly straightforward. We get out of high school or college, whatever the case. We wind up getting an apartment. We try to get an apartment that's on the higher end of what we can afford. We get a phone bill and car on the higher end of what we can afford. There's not really any money left. Then we have to basically keep paying those bills. And it winds up a situation where you have to work at least 40 hours a week in most cases. And then 40 hours doesn't sound like that much, but you only have 5 or 6 hours outside of work. Let's say that you want to go to the gym, do meditation, read books, have a social life. I mean, work on this or that or the other thing. How much time do you even have? It's really not that much. And so now you're in a trap. You're basically in a trap. So then you can do things like productive procrastination, like watch a Joe Rogan podcast. I love Joe Rogan. Makes you feel like you're learning something. But how much of that is, and I love what he does, it's important, but how much of that is actually action-oriented? I think probably some of it is, but you see the point that I'm getting at is I think what we're trying to focus on here is something less kind of fun and something maybe a little bit less, like less enjoyable, but something that produces more of a result, right? Because I can sit here kind of like, zoning out with you guys, like I could do this with you guys, it's fun, I do it with my friends, right? On a night out, socializing, just kind of vibing out, cracking jokes, so on and so forth. That's all fun. There's a huge place for that. But there also has to be a place for things like, let's get angry about where we're at. Let's flesh that out. Let's also flesh out where we're trying to get to. What could that look like? Again, not needing it to be happy, but maybe just having a broader life, right? So this is where, a lot of the dialogue does get confusing though, because, a guy like, say, Grant Cardone, he'll have something like, I think like a shirt that says like, middle class sucks, or screw the middle class, or things like that. He'll say things like that, right? Now, does that really mean that Grant Cardone hates the middle class? No. But he can be framed in that way. They can put it like that. Oh, he hates people. But it's not that Grant Cardone hates the middle class. I mean, I don't necessarily know. Maybe he just sits at home and he's just like, middle class. I don't know what he does, right? But I don't think he does. I think he's actually a very caring looking person. Just look at him, right? He doesn't need to keep working. So why is he doing what he does? I mean, how many of you would keep working at his age? I think he's in his 60s or something right now, right? Incredible health, incredible energy. And I think I've heard he's got like some pretty heavy amount of dough. How many of y'all would keep working by that age, running around doing social media and, engaging with people and trying to help them out, even though you're getting paid for it, right? People like Grant probably, again, I can't speak for him. I'm speculating right now, but I would suspect that he, based on people that I know like him, I'd suspect that he kind of feels like I want to help people, but I want to help people that help themselves by investing in themselves. So I'll put out free social media content, but I also want people to invest in me back because he's learned that people value what they invest in. So he wants to put on programs, he wants to be paid, but he wants to do so in a way that serves. And if he was purely selfish, he'd just stop working. I don't have to work anymore either. I don't need to be out here. I don't need to work another day the rest of my life. So if I'm sitting here helping, I get compensated for it, great, but that's the mindset that I come from. I've also learned that you can, I do free events all over the country, free videos, free groups, free anything you could think of. But at the same time, I also want people to invest in themselves. I want people to want their success as much as I do. Right? I mean, you guys see the kind of energy that I bring in these things. I mean, think about yesterday. Right? Got a little crazy. How many of you have ever even seen anything like that? This is me a little hungover, from blowing up yesterday, right? And that energy is sourced from caring about you. But you've also got to care about yourself. I can only do so much for you. So when Grant says something like, screw the middle class, or I can't remember the exact quote, he's trying to motivate you. That's all that it is. He's trying to help you to shape a new identity. It doesn't mean that he really thinks that there's not importance in people that are in poverty. I mean, let's be honest, right? There are people that are never going to get out of middle class because they're not smart enough. They actually could if they truly committed, but they're probably not that complex of people. They don't resonate with that abstraction, that level of abstraction in their thinking. Their body's not really built for that level of cortisol and impact of focusing that much. And they take probably enjoyment in simpler things that are a little bit more simple. Maybe they take enjoyment in hanging out with their cousin or something like that. It's like a real relationship. For me, if I'm being honest, I decided not to go that route because if I'm just being real, I'm not like happy to say these things. I found that a lot of people in lower middle class trash each other a lot. And they tend to talk bad behind each other's backs. And they triangulate to where, and again, I'm not trying to I'm just saying what I personally experienced, I found that with my wealthy friends, they don't gossip. None of my wealthy friends gossip. They just want to talk about making the world better. That's it. My wealthy friends, they talk about grand philosophy. They talk about how to build more money so that they can help their team. Many of my wealthiest friends don't even take big paychecks because they want to give raise to their staff. That's who I like hanging out with. But some middle class people are like that too, but just the ones that I grew up around personally, I don't want to cast a wide net on everybody middle class, but the ones that I grew up around tended to be frustrated by their situations, and they tend to backstab each other, and they talk negative on each other. That's one of the quickest ways that you can tell that people are not going anywhere, is that they spend their time talking about other people. Why? Because talking about other people negatively is a cope. We get dopamine by feeling like we're better than other people. When you're a, say that you're a billionaire with like the craziest dating life in the world, do you need a cope? No. By talking about well, that guy sucks, right? Maybe Elon Musk, bagging on Bezos, or, they got their own little version, right? But I think they did that a little bit. But, but the point being is you're not going to be inclined to that, right? If you're Elon Musk, you're probably not sitting there inclined to sit there complaining. You're probably thinking about how to get to Mars. You're probably thinking about how to create solar panels. You're probably thinking about how to create electric vehicles. And this stuff is not easy. You're probably not going to create something like that just talking about your neighbor. But you'll see a lot of people talking about their neighbor. And that's a giant cope. So for me, what it was that I was able to recognize that a lot of middle class and being poor was basically a big cope. And I didn't resonate with it because I didn't really have that same experience of people that are super genuine and down to earth and they're just not superficial. I actually started having that experience around other entrepreneurs. Joining groups like Entrepreneur Organization, EO, being around YPO, being around the Summit Series, being around people that were doing big things and had big visions. I found that when I got around people like that, the energy was just on point. You get around people like that, and rather than feeling drained, you walk away feeling energized. You walked away feeling like you wanted to go run through a wall. You're like the Kool-Aid man. You're going to blast through the wall and serve everybody Kool-Aid. Pour from the cup. You guys ever see those old commercials? Oh, yeah. So I saw that, and I just began to resonate with that. I was around people that were a lot better socially, and they're funny, and they understand underlying frames, and they had high degrees of self-confidence, and I was like, I want to be like that. I don't want to be that person with low self-esteem that doesn't know how to say hi to somebody. I don't want to be that person who, is dating somebody that they're not that into. I don't want to be that person who's miserable with their spouse because they didn't meet someone who they're actually wanting to spend time with. I want to be with somebody who I enjoy talking to them. I enjoy the conversations. I enjoy the intimacy. I'm not looking around all the time at other people because I'm not happy with where I'm at. I wanted to live somewhere where I was proud of where I live, where I want to show it off in my live broadcasts, or where I want to invite people up, and when they come in my home, they feel energized and they're being fed with energy. That's why I always live in homes. Maybe I'll live different in the future, but I've lived in homes for a long time that have beautiful views. I like living in a home with a beautiful view where people feel inspired. But I'm going to tell you the truth. Just like when I brought people on trips, and if they didn't pay for it, often they become numb to it, and it just becomes another trip. You could even ask them about the trips later. They can't even remember. I mean, I've had people that I've brought on trips. You say to them, name all the trips Owen brought you on. They can't even remember all the trips. They can't even remember them. What was it like? It was kind of, I don't know. Yeah, it was good. Right? I'm there like at Arches National Park, like at the double arch, up halfway up the arch, looking at the stars, talking to God, and they're sitting there on their iPhone, like, okay, I'm tired, and so on and so forth. Now, you guys are hearing this, and you're saying, I wouldn't be that person. I promise you that the people that thought that they're going would say the same thing. Because it takes a certain degree of inner evolution to really enjoy life, right? If you go to the average party, you could be at a party in Mykonos, and people are talking about going to a party in South Beach. They're talking to go to a party in the Hollywood Hills. They're not saying, we're in Mykonos right now, saying Greece. This is beautiful. Take it in, right? They're thinking of the next party. The average person hooks up with somebody very attractive. They're often thinking about the next person. You go buy something, you're thinking about the next thing. So you go to the same person that you talk to and you say, do you want to go out to Moab in Utah? And so in Utah, by the way, it used to be like a bottom of an ocean. And so it has all these insane rock formations that look like you're on Mars. It looks like you're on a crazy different planet. Arches National Park is where there's the most arches. So there's all these giant rock arches. And the sky is completely clear. And it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, along with many other most beautiful things you've ever seen. And you go there, and if you can really be present to that, that is something that will infuse you with a sort of a spiritual download, I guess you'd call it. I don't mean to be like a spiritual download, but it's kind of what it is. And, it changes you. It shapes you. It informs your mind. It informs your soul. It expands you. But you have to be at a point where you put in the work to get there, because I've seriously seen it to where, I'm bringing people to these places and they can't let it land. And you ask about it later and it's like nothing to them. It meant nothing or very little. And, I'll even ask them about it later. They're like, look, like, I don't know, like whatever, like you say that and it's really, really shocking. But again, how much time do you spend looking at your phone? Like and I often say this, the master skill of life is the ability to walk through a local park and enjoy it. The master skill of life is the ability to walk through a park and enjoy it. Because what we do is we walk into a park, but we're thinking about how to get the watch. We walk in a park, we're thinking about how to get that person we want to date. We walk in the park, we're thinking about that person that did us wrong. It actually takes a change in consciousness to walk through the park and not get mad at your significant other, get mad at your friends, complain. That's a real skill. And let me tell you, I've learned this. When you're around people that are in that mode, you go in that mode. It's like water and wine, right? If you're like water, the other person's like wine. If you interact enough, they will leave like a more diluted wine, and you'll be the diluted wine as well. That's why you want to get more successful, by the way. Okay, here's the secret that nobody gets. Like 99% of the purpose of getting successful is just to get around better people. And the truth is that most people that are successful, they become that way because they actually have gratitude. And I'm going to make distinctions because some people that are successful are also negative, but I'm going to make distinctions of types of successful people. But if you get around the right type of successful people, they have gratitude. You get around the right type of successful people, they're able to let the wind land. You get around the right type of successful people, and their psyche has changed. And here's the key, here's the secret to the whole thing. To get to that point, okay, you're going to hit walls. And you have to allow the weak parts of yourself to die. That complaining part of yourself, you're going to hit points where if you have, say, a payroll, you can't make payroll if you're negative. You can't make payroll if you complain. You can't make payroll if you're distracted. You can't make payroll if you're inefficient. So you become like this aerodynamic vehicle. And part of that vehicle is that you know that you've got to house a lot of positive energy inside your body. So, to fuel you, you want to be fueled by that positivity and possibility and joy. So, what winds up, and like I said, when you're in apathy, you've got to elicit anger to break apart, like an ice pick, those pockets of apathy. But you don't want to stay there. You want to be in a space of joy and expansion. So what winds up happening is that, let me describe myself when I'm at my peak. I'll say myself when I'm negative and me when I'm positive. Me when I'm negative, I always have different problems in the business, right? There's going to be problems, there's going to be staff that are underperforming, staff that are overbilling, because every single staff that you have is going to attempt to overbill and underperform, because human nature is to put out as least energy as possible while getting the most back as possible, right? So you as an owner, you've got to be at a point where you're putting boundaries around that. And I'm a little too nice, and I have too little boundary, and then staff underperforms or overbills, they make mistakes, then that creates different webs of problems. Then I get annoyed by that. Then I complain about that. Then, maybe we lose some footage. Then I complain about the footage loss. Then I'm sitting there in a place like Arches, and I'm angry. Then maybe I'm dating somebody. They feel that anger off me. I'm not being the right leader, because they're feeding off my emotions. And, it's like kind of whatever emotion you give them, they kind of magnify. Then they magnify it back on you. Then you just wish that they would just stop that, because if they could just stop that and maybe be a source of positivity for you, you could kind of feed off of them because you're kind of getting beaten down. But then they can't quite do it because they've got their own challenge and they're also feeding off you and you're causing it too. Then it makes a loop. Then you get negative. Then you make more mistakes. Then maybe I'm shooting a video and I feel a bit negative in the video and my public speaking is not as good, and so on and so forth. Then I'm frustrated by the public speaking. Then I'm in a worse mood. Then starts walking on eggshells because I'm in a worse mood. I'm not mean or anything, but just, it's a mood. Then, then they lose some footage. Then I'm more annoyed. Then I annoyed the girl. Then she's annoyed. Right? So it's like that, right? Now that said, in saying that, that's very, very easy to criticize, isn't it? But y'all know that thing, the man in the arena, right? Okay, so I did that. I own that. I did that. Okay? Okay. I've also done over 100 million sales. I've also had a crazy dating life. I've also traveled a ton. I've met incredible people. I pioneered an entire industry. I got us on a 3-year trip of the country while everybody sat there locked down in defense mode. I said no and went on offense mode. Even random, just kind of random. I even built a giant movie theater in the house. Huge movie theater, built bigger than the size of this, all the room behind me. Built a giant movie theater in the house. And built a gym in the house when you couldn't find gym equipment. And I run a seminars company that relies on social gathering locations and seminar rooms and still kept that thing going and didn't fire anybody and even found the money to build a gym at 4 or 5x the cost and took us on trips. You see what I'm saying? So it's one of the, yeah, thank you. So, yeah, finally someone clapped. If only it would have been them. But, if only they could understand. But the point being was, so I've made mistakes, but I'm the man in the arena. So I feel guilt or remorse for any negative energy I've ever put out, but I've also, I skied the whole country almost, right? So and I had high points and low points. There was points when I did that trip where I was keeping the company going from the road, and I was on cloud 9. And I had other times where I was stressed. But here's the thing. How would you learn to be able to do something like that if you don't see where you go wrong? So there's a word for that. It's called fail forward. Say that with me.
Fail forward.
So even take that trip and even building the business is a process of iteration, and it's a process of failing forward. So when I did the trip as an example, I understood that there were some things that I was doing that was smart. I go back to LA, I'd spin up some really cool promo, bring in a bunch of revenue for the business, prepare to be gone for a couple months. Then I'd sit there and I'd go do a trip. Now, sometimes I do the trip and I would find that the camera gear wasn't packed properly. My content preparation for videos that I was going to shoot wasn't done properly. I didn't have, funny enough, the right clothing. Like sometimes you're on these trips and you need different clothing because there's different temperatures. Like it could rain, it could snow, it could be hot. I didn't have that prepared. I didn't have the best, most efficient route prepared. I didn't know where to stay. I didn't know how to do it in the best way possible, the most efficient way possible. Over time, I found ways to do it cheaper. I found ways to do it more efficiently. I saw ways to, to change the way I did the camera, change the way that I prepared clothing. I even had to change my fitness levels and things like that to be able to do hiking and all sorts of stuff. So I had to plan all of that. There's some place that you go where there's no food. You got to actually plan to bring food. Like, stop and think about this for a minute, what I'm telling you. In your mind, you're imagining, oh, when I'm ready someday, then I'm going to go do my big trip of the country. You don't even realize that even doing a trip of the country has its own stresses. Even doing that. Even when you're rich, it has its own stresses. Because you're still managing some kind of a business from the road. That's a skill set. Learning how to even travel is a skill set. Learning how to enjoy it is a skill set. I realize that I even have to learn how to enjoy this. Now, when I'm saying this, Are you beginning to see how far off your ideal life you actually are?
I see it.
Okay, gold nugget here. Gold nugget here. Are you seeing how far off your ideal life you actually are? If even when you're a millionaire, to actually just go drive the country, it's still going to be as much stress as running a business until you learn how to do it, which took me 2 to 3 years. Even when, so look at the levels you got to cross. You got to figure out how to get more time outside your job to become a millionaire. Then you got to become a millionaire. Then you don't even know how to be happy even then. Right? Because you're thinking like, well, can't you just buy your way out of all these things? Right? You thought that, right? You know the truth? It took me 2-3 years of research on the country to even figure out where the good stuff is. Oh, the average trip that I did was 40, 50, or 100 hours of prep. Okay, you want me to tell you what it looked like?
Yeah.
Okay, so say that you're going to go to Oregon. Just a simple example. You say you're going to go to Oregon. Well, there's going to be, like, how do you know where to go? What's in Oregon? Portland? You going to go hang out with Antifa? What's there? They're there, okay? So what are you going to do, right? So now you got to, so where do you start? You go to a travel agent, they're just going to put you in places where they're getting commission in most cases. So how are you going to figure out where's the gems in Oregon? So now you got to go watch YouTube videos. But YouTube videos is either made by a regular human being with their biases. They're probably only going to highlight the places that they went to because they probably didn't drive the whole thing. And then the other ones are going to be these like Travelocity type videos. Is that the name? Whatever it is, right? But those ones, the person didn't even go. They just took B-roll stock footage and read off Wikipedia. So the actual, these are like random subtle things. So the average, okay, we're talking about getting rich, but what do you do once you're rich? That's what you do. So you basically have to sit there going through all these different videos. Then you've got to figure out which ones are reliable. Then you've got to compare notes on it. Then you go into Google and then you look up all the different written accounts of it. Then you've got to look up how long needed. Like say that you say, Bandon Beach or Cannon Beach in Oregon or Eagle Creek. How long to hike Eagle Creek? What kind of weather in Eagle Creek? What kind of gear in Eagle Creek? How long to get to Eagle Creek? How do you find Eagle Creek? All this stuff, right? And so you've got to know the weather. You've got to know how long you need to go. Yeah, and it's piles of prep. You're watching tons of videos, and then you've got to sit there in Google Maps or some kind of maps program. And then what you do is you've got about 20 places that you want to go, and then you lay them out into Google Map, but you don't even know where's what. Then it makes this like spaghetti string thing, and then you've got to experiment using your abstraction of your brain and figure out how to make it look like a circle or some kind of efficient driving thing. Then think about the clothes that you need, the prep that you need, the hotels that you need. So you're imagining being rich, but then what do you do when you're rich? Say you want to get a mansion. How long does it take to even find the frickin' mansion? You never even thought of that, right? What's involved in the rental or purchase of a mansion? Now you might thought, okay, I'm going to get so rich, I just pay to have all these problems solved. But then where do you even get the right help? How hard is it to find great help? It's pretty freaking hard. Yeah. So you're imagining that you're going to be happy someday, but you don't even know how to be happy in the first place. Because if you can't be happy in a park, you're not going to be happy rich. I can't tell you how many people I've been friends with or dated that like I bring into my life. Like I spent 40 years to build that. They're absolutely miserable because they're miserable in a park, so they're miserable in wealth. So, and then I've made my own mistakes of feeding that as I described. So it's an entire process of getting to a point where A, you're breaking out of mediocrity or being lower class. B, getting to the point where you have the potential to actually get money. C, actually building a cool lifestyle, like having a cool place to live and all that. And D, getting to the point that, like me with, say, my ex, sitting there above the city, looking upon it and having gratitude. There's a psychological shift that has to happen there. But then some of this is a mishmash because that gratitude is what allows you to get there in the first place. But being angry at your situation is also what gets you there in the first place. You see what I'm kind of getting at here? So it's an entire journey that you take to get yourself to that point. And this stuff is not really being discussed in schools at a very, very high level. And so we don't even know how to get there. So what we wind up doing is we sit there working our slave job. Notice that I say that just to rile you up. It's not a slave job, okay, but to rile you up, working your slave job, okay? And then, but beginning to think of it like that can be very motivating, okay? For you.
It's partially true.
It's, you could argue that even the stuff I'm saying is like tough too, right? It's all tough,
True.
Yeah, but it's all a bit true. But it's what do you want to focus on for what you're personally trying to accomplish? So you've got to get to a point where you've got to figure out, well, what kind of motivation do I need at a low level? At a low level, you usually need to break apart pockets of apathy. Okay, at the lowest level though, you need self-love. Right? At the lowest level, you need to stop having toxic shame. Right? Getting mad at yourself at a low level could actually set you back. You're like, I'm already mad at myself. I'm already angry. Right? Okay, well then stop. You see where it goes, right? There's a book called Levels of Energy by Fred Dodson, or Power versus Force by David R. Hawkins. They talk about the different levels of energy, right? At a low level, loving yourself a bit more, not hating yourself can help. Then as you move up, you got to get a little bit angry to focus the mind and to make that situation unacceptable. Then as you move up, you move more into time management, scraping every last little inch of time that you have in order to actually live your dream and start to craft your dream. Then you've got to get into mentorships, mastermind groups, and that's everything. And by the way, you should be in a point where you have people that are on your level that are in masterminds that you created completely for free, coming to events like this. You should be meeting everybody here. You should have other people that are below you that you're coaching, because in the process of coaching, you take on a leadership role, and you should have people that you're paying or doing some kind of exchange with that are above you. You want to always have all three. I have that. I always have people that I'm paying a lot of money to mentor me. I have colleagues and contemporaries at my level, and then I have people that I'm coaching, right? This is me in coaching mode. I also have peers. I also have people that are further down the road than me. And I'm going to have a different personality at every level, right? Would it be weird for you guys to see me, talking to somebody further down the path than me, and I look like you? Like, because you're used to seeing me in this mode. Would it be weird to see me being like, oh yeah, writing stuff down, humble, quiet, receptive? Do you realize that's like 80, 90% of my life? You don't think of me like that, right? You think of me as the guy at the front. But just like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, them smashing down a dunk in a championship, that is like the little cherry on top of years of being coached by people like Timothy S. Grover, who wrote Relentless in Winning. Go look at Relentless in Winning and ask yourself, could this possibly be why Kobe or Jordan or Dwayne Wade got so good? Having coaches like this? I have coaches like that press me, that push me. You have to have coaches like that press you, that push you. But then I have contemporaries, A guy like, say, Aaron Dowdy, you see me do videos with him. Aaron used to be somebody who would have looked up to me when he was starting. Then he achieved social media success beyond mine. Now we act as buddies, and he has areas that he's ahead of me. He's also fascinating because he does more videos from home. He's fascinated by how I do live events. I talk to him about live events. So it's one of these things where he's a contemporary. Then I have people that I coach like y'all, or my children. And I think y'all is my children, which is a little creepy, but I do. So, okay, so the thing is that, so that's a process by which you're always being stretched. There's gonna be parts where I'm sitting there and I realize that I'm being hard on myself and I'm attacking myself, and I say, I need more self-love. Don't attack yourself. Owen, you've accomplished a lot. There's a moment like that. There's other moments that I get mad at myself. I say, Owen, you're being an idiot. And I'm going to sit there, and people try to interrupt my process. A big part of my process is sitting there and actually not attacking myself, but sitting there with remorse, with regret. One of the most important things after a breakup is that you need to do at least 2 months of remorse, 2 months of regret, 2 months of saying, where did that other person lose interest in me or feel bad about me in their life? Like, how is somebody like me, where I'm supposed to be a value add to everybody's life, I've dedicated my life to adding value to everybody's life. My entire reason for being, in many ways, is that I want to be somebody who people's lives are better when I'm in it. How did I get to the point with the most intimate partner I have? You could call your relationship your best friend. It's sort of like it's your best friend, but not, because like it's your best friend till it ends, but it's still your best friend. How is it that my best friend and the person, the non-blood relative that I have that I love the most in the world, which, by the way, I think that's in many ways more powerful than a blood relative. Why do you think that is? Because it's a choice. Yeah. So blood relative is more powerful in some ways, but a non-blood relative is more powerful in other ways. Because it's a true thing of beauty. It's a choice that you made. Why is it that somebody who like a non-blood relative that I just made a choice to love and give my soul to, or to share my soul with, why am I viewed as someone who's a net negative? Is it just because they're crazy? Perhaps. I mean, really, Yeah. I mean, yeah. But, sure. But, I've had BPDXs. But that said, BPD, while being real, and I've had BPDXs, is also a very convenient way to wipe away what you've done. Yeah. Like, oh, they're BP. Okay, Mr. Perfect. Right? And so, and because just because someone has an abandonment trauma, that doesn't, how are you maybe triggering that? So, to be fair, it can happen either way in those cases. But the point is, you're probably triggering too. So the thing is like, you've got to look at yourself. You've got to actually go down a little bit. And you should be sitting there. That's not a time for you to just start smoking a bunch of weed and meet someone new. That's called a cope, right? Because the pain hurts too much. But, and for some people that are struggling, that's actually part of their healing journey. Like, they're not ready yet. They're not ready to take that next step. They're just not ready. Maybe you're in so much pain around it that if you were to look at yourself, you just go blow your own brains out. Well, okay, in that case, get out the weed, get out the rebound, whatever you got to do, right? But that said, if you've stabilized yourself, what's going to happen if you go in your next relationship without that kind of introspection?
It's going to be a train wreck.
It's going to be the exact same thing. And you'll see exes that you have that don't go through that process, and you'll see a year later, 2 years later, they're saying the exact same complaints that they had about you, they're going to have about their next partner. So they believe that they've escaped to a new savior. They have done nothing. In fact, what they have done is they've taken the several years or months or whatever time that you put into building your relationship that had some good things in it. They've binned that, they've trashed it, lit it on fire to never come back, but then now they're just back at square one with the other person. And then how do you fix that? Oh, light that on fire too. So, whether it's in business, whether it's in meeting new people, whether it's in relationships, there has to be that point where you get a coach. Like, after I have a relationship, I talk to friends, I talk to coaches, I talk to people that do therapy, I look up psychology videos, I read books, and I look at myself in great, great, great detail. And even if I did my very, very best, I'm codependent, so like, I'm the kind of person where like, I'm always give my best. Like, I'm like, I will show you the world, right? I'm that kind of person. But, and I'm doing my best that I have to give at the time. But that doesn't mean that I couldn't have done things differently, right? You remember what I mentioned before? Out on the trip, I get into bad mood, things like, these are things that I can see. Does that mean I should be demonized for that? No. I'm not dumb enough to fall in that. But I can see the good that I've done as well. I can see the gray between the black and the white. But, and if somebody splits you like that and puts you in black and white thinking, you don't need to listen to that. But you can still take it as feedback. And that kind of feedback is basically, okay, well, where could I have done better? That said, though, and what's the white that I'd give myself? Well, the benefit that I give myself is this. I'm trying, right? I'm out there trying. I'm the man in the arena. I'm always out there trying to do better. I'm always trying to do more. I'm trying to add more. I'm trying to make a better experience for myself and for you. I'm always, like, say that I do this event here, right? And I invite you. And let's say that a lot of it goes well, but some of it goes bad. I'm only human, right? You're only human. But you can do your best and try your best. And if something about it sucks, you get the feedback, you come in and you do better. You come back stronger and you do better. How are you going to learn that? By not doing public speaking? Is that how I'm going to learn? I'm going to learn that by not doing public speaking? Oh, but no, I shouldn't do that because it's greedy or it's like validation seeking to do public, right? Is that the path of growth? Same way that I learned how to travel, right? Like when I learned how to travel for the rest of my life now, I know how to do that effectively. I know how to keep myself in a good mood. I know how to enjoy it more. I know how to take it in with gratitude. It didn't happen on the first trip, the second trip, the third trip. It was a mix of both, right? It's both, stress and good stuff. But I learned through that process of feeling forward, right? It'd be nice to have people around you that want to go through that process with you and that are committed to going through that process with you. But you know what you're going to see a lot in life? Your friends who don't see the vision behind that or don't truly connect and adopt that vision, all that they can focus on is the negative part because they don't see that ultimate vision of eventually being at a point where you could actually master it. But what I've seen in my life is that there's usually a bunch of areas that I did master, okay? There's all these areas that I did master. Somebody comes into my life and then they enjoy all those parts that they take for granted, but then when they actually come and link up with me and try to build those other parts together, they're like, no, I expect you to be perfect because, in all these other areas you've done world-class things. Why not be perfect in this thing too? Then they get mad at that, but what is that? That's the unthinking masses level of not being able, like they can come and take the good stuff, but they're not able to fight with you through the process of the bad stuff and then keep pushing through and getting it down. Right? So if I bring someone in my life and I try to elevate them, what I've noticed is that they quickly move up, they like all the perks, then the perks become normalized, almost like getting a big screen TV. The first week you have it, you're like, big screen, 4K, 8K. But then what happens, eventually it just becomes normal. But then all of a sudden it's like, well, wait, the cable went out for 5 minutes. Meh. Oh, air travel, flying across the country in a tube would have taken you weeks by horseback or months. You could have died. But now the plane is an hour late. Boo, right? No sense of appreciation or gratitude for what went in that airplane. Why? Because they weren't there for the Wright brothers, the wood plane, crashing in the wood plane, the redesign, the billions of dollars. Can't let it land. And so that's the message that I'm trying to leave you with, though, is get out of the camp of the complainers, get out of the camp of the people that lack gratitude, get out of the camp of the people that are in apathy, get out of the camp of people that say, I'm not going to try, and people that try suck. Get out of that and get in the camp of people that are actually taking action. Sure, maybe part of it's because you're a crazy win-lose person. Maybe it's 5% that. And in that process of growth, you can weed that out of yourself and become a saint. And you actually should try. Maybe you attack yourself here or there. Maybe you get lazy here or there. Maybe you make mistakes here or there. But you're growing. You're taking action. You're failing forward. Say the word fail forward.
Fail forward.
Okay, and what this is ultimately going to do is it's going to create an experience for everybody here to where now you're able to live a broader life. You don't need that. You can be happy being at home. You can be happy just, medicating yourself. You can be happy, watching Netflix, smoking weed, and ordering Postmates. Like, you can do that if you want. But all that said, that's not what life is. And so what I've done in my journey is when I hit that point where I'm in my comfort zone, I don't just stop and say, okay, this sucks. In my business, if I reach a point of kind of stagnance in the business where I'm not exploring new lands, visiting new lands, trying new things, pushing myself, I will do something boring. Like, I'll sit in my house alone for 4 or 5 months, grinding it out, getting the finance ahead, getting things together, figuring things out so that I can go do that next thing. Maybe some of you in here want to learn from a course like mine, and you're like, oh, that's hard to do. I would honestly recommend you do the same thing. Sit there, get your stuff together, like what I would do at my levels too. Find a way to get in it. That's if you want to be in a course like mine. If that's a dream for you, do what it takes to get in it. Just like for me, I did what it took to do my trip. You got to figure it out. And the alternate is, yes, you can find pleasure in those small things. You can absolutely find pleasure in those small things. You can play small, but now your life goes by, decades go by, and what does the average person look like? The average person by the time they're 40 is mentally calcified. They're loaded with so much trauma that they're stuffing that they can only be happy drinking or smoking weed, playing video games, complaining, just paying for their kids to live. And these joyful young kids are running around joyful, and now they're traumatizing their own children. And their children don't look up to them because they're not living a life that their kids want to emulate, and they're not in a psychology that the kids would resonate with. So now the kids act up, and the kids are a mess, and the cycle continues. So living a great life is not just about, saying to yourself, oh, I'll be happy when. Living a great life is enjoying walking through a park now. It's also enjoying getting mad. It's also enjoying, I'm saying funny is a Freudian slip, but enjoying getting mad at yourself now, at the right time for the right things. Giving yourself props at the right time for the right things. Looking at time management at the right time and finding a way through that. Getting mentors, getting peer groups, getting people who you're teaching, reading books, researching, finding ways, finding things that it is that you want, finding things that motivate you and inspire you to go do. And then if you've got to duck your head down for a while to go do it, you do it. Then realizing that those things won't even make you happy. But then in the process of mastering those things, they do become easier. Now you do know how to do the trip and it's not stressful. And now you can do any trip for the rest of your life. Right? For me to find all those ski resorts, was actually in some ways more stress than just the skiing. But now I know every skill in the country for the rest of my life. Learning about social skills was like throwing myself into a bed of nails. I was scared. Now I know how to meet people for the rest of my life. Learning how to do marketing and sales campaigns, doing over 100 million in sales, and that's just what I'm directly attached to, not even people who I'm on their board of advisors, I'd be in billions. That was hard to learn how to do, but now I can do that for the rest of my life. But I don't just stop there. I want to go to Alaska. I want to go to the top of mountains. I want to do whitewater rafting. I want to go with guns out into nature where grizzly bears are and go deep into nature. I want to go up into the Arctic. I want to travel the world, see the world, bring my children on adventures. I want to do bigger, more badass seminars, crazier seminars, all of this. Right? I want to live life. And so in my content in the future, my new version of like infield is life field, like doing it, like showing myself, having adventures, going to places, living life. Now, that's going to be a bit of a false fake front in some ways because it'll look like in a highlight reel, like I'm here, winning. That's not the real process, but that's how the unthinking masses think and resonate because they're low attention span junkies, stimulus junkies. But the reality of it is even more beautiful because in the same way that people that I could bring on adventures could never truly let it land, can never truly process, just like on an airplane, unless you were the Wright brothers and had the wooden planes and had the crappy planes and the better planes and better, unless you're there through that iterative process, you can't truly appreciate it. This process that you're going to go through to build your life amazing, you are going to have the real joy of authentic self-esteem, real accomplishment, real joy, real gratitude, real appreciation. Like I said, for a man, what is a watch? It's just a simple little thing as a reminder for what you accomplish. And having those base level accomplishments so that when you look in the mirror, you feel good. When you walk into a room, you're there as an equal to everybody and as a leader to most, and generally a leader to all, because you've been down that path. There's a true self-esteem that money can never buy. You could go get venture capital to run a company, but if you didn't go through a journey like this and you got it easy, or you got plucked up by the establishment and became a famous musician, you can't buy that kind of self-esteem. That self-esteem is only earned. Yes, it's earned through self-love. Yes, it's earned through meditation. Yes, it's earned through your belief system. Yes, it's earned through releasing trauma. But at a core, it's also earned via the journey of your life. The dragons that you slayed, inner and external. And so what I'm saying here is yes, get the money you want. Meet the people you want. Get the spiritual experience you want. The depth that you want. The breadth in life that you want. Go do that. Don't be the person of the unthinking masses. Don't take the narrative. Don't smoke the weed. Don't drink the alcohol. Don't eat the fast food. Don't waste time looking at pop culture. Don't waste your life gossiping. Don't waste your life soothing and coping. Expand, grow, evolve, win, give, share, add life, connect to God. Share that energy. Be a representative of that. Clear the mind. Get present. Get out of your head. Allow that divine energy to infuse your mind, infuse your soul, and hear that whisper. It's not like, hello, Timmy. It's a whisper. And see what you begin to resonate with, what your life's journey is, and what can be almost like the gym, the iron sharpens iron. So you can have this life journey, take your lumps, learn from it, research, have those down moments, and have enormous wins. And in doing this, you will live a fulfilling life. And hopefully you'll have children and a family. If you don't do that, you'll give to the next generation, you'll give back, and you'll experience true joy, love, expansion, connection to your creator, goodness, positivity, and an amazing, amazing, worthy life. And this life is accessible to you. It's your birthright. It's accessible to anybody. Don't let them give you a path of least resistance and take it. It is a deal with the devil. Make a decision to live the best life that you can. I'm here to help you. I love you. We're all here to help each other. We're all a family. We're all even related, by the way. Weird to think about, but at some point, we're a family. We're here for each other. Love your fellow human beings. Do the best you can. Add value to the world. And walk the journey you're here to experience. So we're going to wrap this up. I love you guys very much. I hope you had a great adventure. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. This was awesome. Thank you so much.